Hello, in this video I'm going to work quickly through a practice TOEFL ITP SWE section practice test. That's the structure and written expression. It starts off with 15 questions, fill in the blank, choose the correct answer, and then it goes to 25 questions, choose the incorrect part of the sentence for a total of 40 questions in this section. And so most of these are fairly simple, following basic grammar rules. Some are somewhat tricky. Let's look at number one. Different hormones blank at the same time on a particular target issue. Different hormones is our subject. We just want a basic adverb verb construction there. Different hormones usually act at the same time on a particular subject. Okay. Next, the tidal forces on the earth due to blank. Only 0.46 of those due to the moon. So we've got tidal forces as plural, on the earth due to something, and then we need a verb, and then that's going to link our second part here. Only 0.46 of those due to the moon. So let's see, the sun is, now we've got tidal forces, that's wrong. You can take out the singular, A and C. Tidal forces on the earth due to the sun, they are. We don't want to double our subject, so it must be D then. We've got a subject, they is the tidal forces, so we don't want to put the pronoun they and have our subject there again. Tidal forces on the earth due to the sun are only 0.46% of those due to the moon. Okay. Number three, most radioactive elements occur in igneous and metamorphic blank fossils occur in sedimentary rocks. Definitely want rocks. That's A, B, C, and D. But we need some sort of conjunction here, but nearly all fossils occur in sedimentary rocks. Looks correct. We want a conjunction because we're after the comma here. We're starting a new clause. And it's not a relative clause. We're not describing the rocks. So we're not going to say which, but is our correct starting point for that new clause. But fossils occur in sedimentary rocks. So we've got radioactive elements in two types of rocks, and in contrast, fossils occur in a different type of rock. Number four, blank radioisotope is encountered. The first step in its identification is the determination of its half-life. When, we got a simple time clause here, when an unknown radioisotope is encountered. Then we have the main clause, the first step in its identification is the determination. Number five, the Missouri blank longest river in the United States. Looks like we should have a double comma here. We're going to add information about the Missouri River. And so we need one of. We can also say which is one of, but same basic idea. We can omit which is and just say one of the longest rivers. No, that is incorrect, because one of the longest rivers would need an S there. So A, that's a singular plural issue there. So the Missouri River, the longest river in the United States. And again, we could say which is the longest river in the United States. And so that singular becomes important because it's not one of plural rivers. Number six, coral islands such as the Maldives are the tips of the reefs built during periods of warm climate when blank higher. Well, we've got a time clause here. When sea levels were, since we have a comma and a when clause, we're going to need a verb, so A is incorrect. When sea had levels higher, that's a word order problem, and there's also a singular plural problem there. When having sea levels higher, again, missing a verb, that's a gerund. When sea levels were higher, is correct. Hail forms within large, dense cumulonimbus blank develop on hot, humid summer days. Clouds, definitely cumulonimbus is a type of cloud, so we want clouds, and then we're going to have an adjective clause starting here, that develop on hot, humid summer days. Develop is our verb following that, the relative pronoun, that will start the adjective clause describing the clouds that develop on hot, humid summer days. Number 8, measles is a highly contagious viral disease. Notice the S here on measles, that's just the name of the disease, so this is not a subject-verb error. Measles is a highly contagious viral disease blank by a characteristic skin rash, which is accompanied or accompanied by. Again, we can omit which is accompanied, which is, and just say accompanied by a characteristic skin rash. Number 9, Charles Darwin's first scientific book published in 1842, blank a since substantiated theory on the origin of coral reefs and atolls. Published in 1842, so we're going to continue with the first part here. His first scientific book, we need a verb. Presented a since substantiated theory. It presents, we don't want the present tense. To present, we don't want to use infinitive here, so we have to say presented. It is in 1842, so it must have been the past tense. That's the only one that's the past tense. That's a simple verb tense problem. Phytoplanktons thrive where blank phosphorus into the upper layers of a body of water. They thrive where something happens, where upwelling currents circulate. That looks okay. Where the circulation of upwelling currents phosphorus, we need a verb there, that's incorrect. C, where are, we never follow where with a verb. And D, where circulates upwelling, nope, we need a subject and then a verb to have our clause here following where upwelling currents, we've got our gerund subject, and then they circulate this object phosphorus into the upper layers. Number 11, by the end of 1609, Galileo had a 20-power telescope that enabled him to see blank planets revolving around Jupiter. What he called, see these things which he called, or to see what he called planets, to see the call planets, no, the call is not an adjective. To see he called, that doesn't make sense. We need an object after see, to see, to call him. We're not going to use two infinitives in a row like that. To see what he called, to see the things which he called. Number 12, on every continent except Antarctica, blank more than 30,000 species of spiders are some of the more than. So we need a verb here, on every continent except Antarctica, there are or are some of the more than 30,000 species of spiders. Yeah, if there are 30,000 species and we got plural continents, plural spiders, and so we want to use plural verb here. B doesn't have a verb. Some are, that's going to start a new subject verb here, so that won't make sense after the subject. The continent except Antarctica, C is correct. Number 13, many bugs possess defensive scent glands and emit disagreeable odors when they are disturbed or when disturbed. When are they disturbed? That's just a word order problem there. When disturbed has the same meaning as when they are disturbed. When disturbed by, that's passive voice, by somebody. When they are disturbed is also passive voice. Number 14, hurricanes move with the large-scale wind currents. Blank are embedded, in which they are embedded again. We could say large-scale wind currents in which, this is a prepositional relative pronoun, in which they are embedded. So they are embedded in these things which they move with. That they are embedded in, we still need a preposition here because the hurricanes are in these large-scale wind currents. In that does not have the same meaning. In that is not a locational prepositional phrase. 15, blank the Earth's ice to melt. The Earth's oceans would rise by about 200 if the Earth's ice were to melt, but that's incorrect because we don't have were here. Were. So this is a way to phrase the conditional. We can say if the Earth's ice were to melt, or if the Earth's ice melted. This is a second conditional problem here. We've got would rise, we've got modal and base verb in the second clause here in the main clause. So the if clause can be phrased in two different ways. We can say were all the Earth's ice to melt, or if the Earth's ice were to melt, or if the Earth's ice melted. We still want to use were because that's the default be verb for the second conditional or the present unreal conditional. Let's go on to the next part, which is choosing the incorrect word. The brilliantly colored rhinoceros viper has 2 or 3 horns above each nostrils. Well, this is just a simple above each needs a singular noun following it, above each nostril. Number 17, most of the outer planets has, again, that's subject-verb agreement. We got planets, have. Historical records show that Halley's Comet has returned. We need a verb 3 past participle to make the present perfect. Has returned about every 76 years for the past 2000. 19, Robert Heinlein was instrumental in popularizing science fiction with a series of stories that are stories, plural. We need subject-verb agreement. These are pretty simple so far. Each number on the Richter scale represents, number is singular, so it represents a tenfold increase in the amplitude of waves of ground motion recorded during the earthquake. Number 21, Lake Tahoe, located on the eastern edge of the Sierra Nevada range, is fed. Passive voice is, we got be verb, we need a past participle, and then by the active agent, more than 30 mountain streams. 22, established in 1789 and operated by the Jesuits, Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., is the oldest. We need a superlative oldest to follow the. In the United States is the oldest. We don't have anything to compare it against, and so older doesn't make sense as a comparative adjective form. 23, the surface of the planet Venus is almost completely hidden by thick clouds that surround it. Hid is the simple past. We need verb 3 or past participle, hidden. It is completely hidden. Again, passive voice, by something. 24, present in rocks of all types. Hematite is particularly abundant. We've got an adjective here. We want an adverb to describe the adjective. Abundant in the sedimentary rocks, known as red beds. They are known by scientists. Tropical cyclones, like or unlike extratropical cyclones, which derive much of their energy from the jet stream, originate far from the polar front. Alike is not used in this word placement. 26. Elizabeth Cady Stanton organized the first women's rights conventions in 1848 and was instrumental, adjective after be verb. Instrumentally cannot, adverb can't be following a be verb like that, not without an adjective anyway. 27. Jaguarundus are sleek long-tailed creatures that are colored either, oh, no, sorry if I read that. Are long-tailed creatures colored either a uniform. Uniform has the Y sound, and so an is the wrong article. A uniform reddish-brown or dark gray. Sorry, I read that in here because that's the other way you can phrase that. Uniform, again, Y sound, not the U sound, but a Y sound, so we can't use an. We would say a uniform reddish. 28, it is possible to get a sunburn on a cloudy day because 80% of the ultraviolet rays from the sun would penetrate the cloud cover. It is possible to get a sunburn on a cloudy day because 80% of the ultraviolet rays from the sun, this modal would be a conditional. The other possibility here, if it's possible, we shouldn't use the conditional would because the conditional would, the modal would is for the conditional, the impossible. But cloud cover is also a possibility here. And so I would like to see a hyphen, cloud cover, or singular word. I mean, I think cloud cover could be phrased as singular word. No, cloud cover is going to be hyphenated. No, cloud cover, all right. And so that is 2 words, so would is the first guess because would is used for the unreal conditional. Will penetrate cloud cover. In 1964, GATT established International Trade Center in order to assist developing countries in the promotion of their exports. Subject-verb agreement, developing countries, their exports. Well, I guess that's adjective, possessive adjective, doesn't agree with the noun. 30, Joseph Heller's novel Catch-22 satirizes both the horrors of war as well as the power of modern bureaucratic institutions. Satirizes both the horrors of war and both and. (31) In Roots, Alex Haley uses fictional details to embellish a factual history, singular factual history. We've got singular article, factual, we need to have history because of the singular article. 32, the carbon atoms of the diamond are so strongly bonded that a diamond can only be scratched with other diamonds. With another diamond. 33, viruses are extremely tiny particles that are able to reproduce only within cells of their hosts. Viruses are extremely tiny parasites that are able to reproduce only within the cells of theirs. That's a possessive pronoun, should be their possessive adjective. 34, during the last ice age, which ended about 10,000 years ago, there was about 3 times more ice than there is today. 35, melons most probably originated in Persia and were introduced to North America and were brought to, we need something, introduced to, were brought to the North American continent during the 16th century. 36, more than 600 million individual bacteria live on the skin of humans. More than 600 million, well, we've got lives, and 600 million doesn't make sense. They live. More than 600 million things do this other thing. 37, the more directly overhead the moon is, the greater the effect that it exhibits on the Earth. I don't like B or C. Typically, we're going to say the more directly overhead the moon is, the greater. We definitely need comparative, but I think there's a word order problem here too. The greater the effect it exhibits, the greater is the effect. We can't say the great because great is an adjective, and if we have article space noun, we need to have article space verb. We need to have a noun in there. Great is not a noun there, so we can't have it alone after an article. But I think B and C are actually incorrect there. 38, as the international date line at 180 degrees longitude is crossed westerly, it becomes necessary to change the date by moving it 1 day forward. Is crossed westerly. As the international date line at 180 degrees longitude is crossed westerly, it becomes necessary to change the date by moving it 1 day forward westerly. Well, it becomes necessary to change the date by moving it 1 day forward. That's fine. As the international date line is crossed westerly, seems fine to me. I'm going to look at the answers on that one. Kilauea's numerous eruptions are generally composed of molten lava with little escaping gas and few explosions. And 40, the incubation period of tetanus is usually 5 to 10 days, and the most frequently occurring symptom is jaw stiffness. So we need occurring here. All right, so some of these practice tests do in fact have mild errors. This is practice test 5, number 38. Let's see if we can find an answer quickly. Yeah, in a westerly direction. Yeah, that was my initial thought. Westerly should be used in this prepositional phrase here. Number 38. Right. So you can see most of these are fairly easy. A couple of them are a little tricky, but none of them is too complex that it would be impossible to figure out. And so almost all of them follow just a basic format of simple grammatical errors like subject-verb agreement, incorrect word forms, or singular plural problems. That's the majority of them. So I'll continue to go over some of these practice tests in future videos. Thank you.